Hey everybody, I'm Holly, aka the ScientoloGeek, and welcome back to part 18 of the data series. This is going to be just a very quick introduction because I don't really have much to talk about. But I do want to show you one thing. This I received maybe last week. This is the Ethics Specialist course, part 1. Now, it doesn't have every single policy letter or bulletin mentioned in the table of contents, but currently right now what I'm doing is I'm trying to go through it myself, go through the table of contents, go through the volumes that I have digitally, and then just save those groups of pages from each policy or bulletin, and then I'm going to combine them all into one thing called the Ethics Specialist course, which I'm going to put up online in that Google Drive. If you want access to the Google Drive, feel free to hit me up in the Discord, link in the description, or you can hit me up an email at scientologeek@gmail.com. A valid Gmail address is required in order to be able to have access to the folder. Without any further ado, let's get started. So we are on the HCO policy letter of the 7th of July, 1970, called Working and Managing.
By actual experience in working and managing in many activities, I can state flatly that the most dangerous worker-manager thing to do is to work or manage from something else than statistics. Interpersonal relations with many strata of many societies and many lands with many activities demonstrates plainly that man's largest and most unjust fault consists wholly of acting on opinion.
If an opinion is informed, then it seems like things can actually work out pretty well. I don't know how many interpersonal relations with many strata of many societies and many lands with many activities you've had, Hubbard, considering that you've lied about a lot of your travels. So how am I supposed to know whether this is right unless you provide some evidence?
Opinions can be as varied as the weather in Washington, all on the same subject. When one says opinion, one's dealing with that morass of false reports and prejudices which make up the chaos of current social orders. Some seek an answer in status. If one has status, one is safe, is about as frail as a house of cards. Ask some recently deposed dictator or yesterday's idol what his status was worth. Yet many work exclusively for status. In Spain, it's enough to have an executive degree. One doesn't have to do any executiving. Work at it? Caramba, no. In capitalisms, it's enough to be an heir, and in communisms, it is only necessary to be the son of a commissar. Work? Nyet.
What's with all the foreign language stuff?
Revolts are protests against idle status. Where are the kings of yesteryear? Riding along on the last generation's statistics is as fatal as a diet of thin air. Undeserved status is a false statistic. Nothing is more bitterly resented unless it's a statistic earned without status by those who live by status alone. William Stieber, the most skilled intelligence chief of the 19th century who won the Franco-Prussian War for Bismarck, was hated by German officers because he was not a proper officer, but a civilian.
I'm going to look up William Stieber, Otto von Bismarck's master spy and director of the Prussian, I'm going to butcher the hell out of this, Feldgendarmerie. He was an agent of domestic surveillance and an external agent. He invented modern information gathering, along with Joseph Fouché.
When German officers took over German intelligence, they lost 2 wars in a row, and the caste is very unlamentedly dead. So long as character can be reviled, so long as opinion is used, so long as governments run on rumors and false reports, the social scene will continue to be a mess. You will not believe it, but governments think newspaper stories are public opinion. One U.S. president was astounded to be given a wildly enthusiastic public reception at an airport. The press had been hammering him for a year, and the poor fellow thought it was public opinion. Texts on public relations remark this strange governmental fixation on believing the press. That means all a nation's enemies have to do is bribe or hire some underpaid reporters or semi-bankrupt publishers, and voila, it can steer the government any way it wishes.
I don't think it's that easy.
Do a survey on any personality or subject, and the conflicts in opinion are revealed as fantastic. 7 witnesses to one street accident will even give 7 conflicting accounts. Thus, this whole field of opinion and reports is a quicksand endangering both personal repute and management skill.
it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to give conflicting accounts. They may give conflicting accounts about like the shirt color of somebody or the car color or whatever, but the accident should be the same.
It is so bad that wars and revolutions stem directly from the use of opinion and the neglect of statistics. In a chaos, it's necessary to set up one point or terminal which is stable before one can really decide anything, much less get anything done. A statistic is such a stable point. One can proceed from it and use it to the degree that it's a correct statistic. One can detect then when things start to go wrong well before they crash. Using opinion or random rumors or reports, one can go very wrong indeed. In fact, using these without knowing the statistics, one can smash a life or crash a group. The U.S. Navy operates on the social attainments and civilized behavior of their people. A naval officer is promoted on the basis of his amiability and the social skill of his wife.
Why would he be promoted based on the social skill of his wife? Or is he talking about his wife kind of hyping him up to try to get promoted? I mean, I personally don't think a naval officer should be promoted on the basis of amiability. That kind of seems like favoritism, but it does happen.
A clerk is promoted because he marries the boss's daughter. A governor's elected because he could play a guitar.
What? How about political stances?
This is a whirlwind of chaos because of the falseness of the statistics used, so the stat used is itself an outpoint in each case. Prediction. Outpoints are more than useful in prediction. The whole reason one does a data analysis and a situation analysis is to predict. The biggest outpoint would be a missing ideal scene. The next biggest would be a correct statistic for it. If these are missing, then prediction can become a matter of telling fortunes with bamboo sticks. One predicts in order to continue the viability of an organism, an individual, a group, an organization, a state, or nation, or planet, or to estimate the future of anything. The more outpoints, the less future. A disaster could be said to be a totality of outpoints in final and sudden culmination. This gives one a return to chaos. The closer one approaches a disaster, the more outpoints will turn up. Thus, the more outpoints that turn up, the closer one is approaching a disaster. When the outpoints are overwhelming, a condition of death is approached. By being able to predict, the organism or individual or group can correct the outpoints before disaster occurs. Each sphere of activity has its own prediction. A group of different activities with a common goal can be predicted by the outpoints turning up in parts of the general activity. In theory, if all parts of a main group or organization had an ideal scene for each, a statistic, and an intense interest in maintaining the ideal scene and statistic of each part, survival would be infinite. Any group or organism or individual is somewhat interdependent upon its neighbors, on other groups and individuals. It cannot, however, put them right unless it itself has reached some acceptable level of approach to its ideal scenes. The conflict amongst organisms, individuals, and groups does not necessarily add up to the survival of the fittest, whatever that meant. It does, however, mean that in such conflict, the best chance of survival goes to the individual, organism, or group that best approaches and maintains its ideal scene, lesser ideal scenes, statistic, and lesser statistics.
Now, what happens if that way to maintain those things ends up being walking all over people, aka survival of the fittest to get yourself to the top? I don't really have much to say other than like if you like the video, dislike if you don't. I don't really care. Comment with your feedback or questions, good, bad, or sideways, and subscribe to be kept up to date on future content. I'll talk to all of you later. See you.